Okay, we've got a couple of stories with regard to the Supreme Court that we wanted to bring to you this morning, both of which are really significant. So we were actually waiting for a decision from the Supreme Court with regard to that abortion pill ruling. You had two contradictory rulings. You had a Texas judge that said the abortion pill, which is now used for more than 50% of abortions nationwide, that it should be banned not only in states where abortion is banned, but in all states, so California and Texas alike. You also had a judge from Washington state that said the status quo with regard to this pill should remain in place. So you got conflict here, and that made it almost guaranteed that this thing was going to head up to the Supreme Court. They had set a deadline for themselves of last night at midnight to make this decision, but what happened? They decided to extend that deadline. Go ahead and put this up on the screen. Supreme Court on Wednesday extended for 2 days a pause on a lower court ruling that had sought to limit access to the abortion pill mifepristone, ensuring that the drug would continue to remain widely available for now. In a brief order, Justice Samuel Alito announced that the pause would lapse on Friday now at midnight, giving the court more time to consider the case, though it could act before then. And they kind of read the tea leaves here and say the fact that the court did not meet that earlier deadline suggests there might be disagreement among the justices in their first major case about abortion access. Since a conservative majority in June upended the constitutional right to an abortion, it could also indicate there might be a dissent in the case. Could also indicate none of that. I mean, it's very hard to read into these things, but, you know, I did note you're kicking it to Friday. That's like Friday news dump, right? At midnight, classic timing. If you're trying to bury something, you don't want to get a lot of press around. And, you know, the fact that it's taking a while for them to work through this, it could indicate that there is real disagreement between some of the more liberal justices and some of the more conservative justices, and that this is a difficult one for them to make a decision on. One thing that's noteworthy here, I think, as well, is in the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe versus Wade, they really made a big show of saying, like, okay, this is great. Now the Supreme Court is out of the abortion. We're going to leave it to the states, and we're going to let them do what they want to do in accordance with their democratic process, et cetera. You know, if they back this Texas judge who is saying, we want to ban this pill for every state across the entire country, well, that's not exactly leaving it up to the states now, is it?
Well, I also think that the reason why this is also outside of it is because it focuses on FDA procedure and whether it has been valid for, what is it, almost 18 years?
23 years.
23 years,
that's right.
23 years. So effectively, I mean, the judge's ruling in the case in Texas, what he said that these people who, they challenged the approval of the pill more than 2 decades ago. So if I had to guess, Krystal, a lot of this is going to focus, unfortunately, because this is how the law works, is not really going to focus on the merits of what we're talking about here, popularity. They're going to focus on the process of approval and appeals. And as I understand it, the way that the Texas judge had issued the order is he had said that the original approval itself was wrong. Whereas I think that the court is going to focus both maybe on that narrow legal question, but also on the overall question of the validity of the overall approval, the legal process through which that all happens.
Yes. So in terms of what they actually put out as their justification for their decision, no doubt that's what it's going to focus on.
Right.
In terms of their actual thinking behind the scenes, they will certainly be weighing the politics of it, the public perception, the popularity of this pill, and all of those sorts of things. But you're absolutely correct to point out that if they do decide to agree with this Texas judge who says that it should be banned nationwide, that is an extraordinary new precedent, which would basically say the Supreme Court now has the decision sort of above and beyond the FDA to decide what sort of treatments are popular, especially since this has been in use for decades. And by the way, and I went through this in the monologue I did about it, the science around whether or not this pill is safe is really not controversial. There were like 101 studies done on it, hundreds of thousands of, you know, women who took this pill. There was one death in all of those hundreds of thousands that had anything to do with it, and it was related to an infection with regard to the abortion. It is as safe as like aspirin. So what the judge in Texas ruled is that because this is not like a fun thing to go through, you're basically forcing a miscarriage. And since women went through discomfort while they were going through this process, that's what he chalked up to. It's not really as safe as the FDA is ultimately saying. So this would really open up all sorts of potential avenues for challenging other, drugs that have been authorized by the FDA and putting that in the hands of these unelected judges instead of the representatives that, listen, we've got our issues with the FDA. I'm not saying that they're a perfect organization whatsoever, but there's at least a democratic process with regard to that's the agency that is supposed to sort through the evidence and that we have some sort of transparency into how they're making these decisions.
Right. So that was actually going to be, look, I hate the FDA. I think we should burn much of it to the ground and completely revamp the way that we approve drugs and all of that.
Yeah.
But I want a more democratic process.
Yes.
I don't actually want to go, I don't trust these judges as much. I trust these judges as much as I trust the FDA, which is I don't trust them, period. Really what we need is more actual democratic small d control and transparencies into the way that the drug companies, the FDA, have a revolving door, the types of studies that they have, the scientific journals, and this entire industrial complex that exists outside of our plain view, where if we got real pictures into some of this data, and this isn't about just the abortion pill. I'm talking about all drugs and all vaccines too, by the way, which is the actual data needs to be made very much more available to people for independent analyses pre-approval. But that's very separate, I think, from the abortion pill question, which also, as you said, we do have decades now of people who are using it. So in terms of, and this isn't even about how you morally feel about the issue. We're literally talking about whether they improperly circumvented their approval process by discounting adverse reaction to the drug. Like, we're not talking about whether it's murder or not. Like, the anti-abortion groups are not bringing the case on those grounds.
Correct.
And I don't think people understand that. They think this is like a religious ruling. I'm like, technically, in the way that it was made, it had nothing to do with that.
Yes, that is well said. In terms of how the public feels about this, you will not be surprised to learn that roughly 2 in 3, go ahead and put this up on the screen from The Hill, roughly 2 in 3 respondents in a new poll said that the abortion drug mifepristone should remain available in states where abortion is legal, following that Texas federal judge's decision to block the pill nationwide earlier this month. This was a CBS News poll. It was released just in the past week, found that 67% said it should remain available in those states where abortion is legal. Only 33% said it should not. There is a partisan split on this issue, but, even among Republicans, they're basically split 50-50. You've got 46% saying it should be available, 54% saying it should not be available. So there's a little bit of a tilt towards the Texas judges ruling with regard to the Republican Party, pretty close to 50-50. In terms of Democrats and independents, it ain't close at all. 84% of Democrats and 72% of independents say it should remain available. And that, in a nutshell, is the issue that Republicans have with regard to all facets of abortion and the current landscape, which is that even within their own base is not all on board with the level of extremism that is represented in this ruling and that's represented in some of the laws that are being passed in states, and certainly which would be represented by a nationwide abortion ban, which is being pushed by plenty of Republicans, including, potential presidential candidate Mike Pence. They are, not only is their whole base not really on board with it, but independents, and certainly Democrats, but independents being the key group here, they are not on board with it at all either. Every persuadable voter is effectively on the other side of this issue from Republicans, and that's why you see this. And it's very motivating, too. That's the sort of deadly combo here is it's unpopular and people are highly motivated by it, which is why we've seen a lot of the election results that we've seen in recent weeks and years.
I think you're right.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.